Well, once again, welcome everyone to Sustainable Minds Weekly Webcast. This week we have a special webcast in the series of our customer story webcasts. And this is the second in our series, Creating Knowledge Workers for the Greener Product Marketplace. This week our story is about getting started. Last month we had our first webcast on this topic, creating knowledge workers for the greener product marketplace, and last month's theme was 3 schools, 3 disciplines, 3 educators. And you can see here on the Sustainable Minds blog, you can watch a replay of that webcast, as well as a comprehensive article recapping the discussion from that webcast. It was very well received and really chock full of interesting information about how educators from 3 different disciplines, business design and engineering, and at different levels, graduate and undergraduate, are integrating Sustainable Minds into their curriculum. So today's part 2, and by the way, please visit our blog and watch the replay, and we welcome your comments and feedback on the content. So today's topic, part 2, is about just getting started. And even in the last webcast, the stories that they told applied to this topic as well, because everybody is pretty much just getting started. Both educators teaching in academic settings, undergraduate, graduate, and extension programs, and people in corporate education and training programs are also just getting started. So new students need education, existing students need new education. And so there's a big crossover in learnings happening in academia as well as to the learnings that need to happen in industry. What we're seeing is the educators jumping in and simply getting started, applying what they know, integrating it into current curriculum, developing new course curriculum. And you're going to see an example of each of those today, integrating into current curriculum, undergraduate and graduate, and then completely new curriculum based on integrating this new way of thinking and working into manufacturing education. Ultimately, it's all about creating jobs, getting people employed, to push the green economy forward, kids coming out of school, as well as people moving from job to job or creating new jobs for themselves in their current environment. The agenda for today would be for those of you who don't know us, and for those of you who do, but just a refresher, a brief introduction. And then we'll kick it off with Raj from Montana Tech and move to Aaron at Kent State, do our sneak preview, and then do some more Q&A. You can ask questions at any time in the questions pane. We go to webinar panel. We are going to take questions between each of the presenters so that you can ask clarifying or follow-up questions to what they shared. And then at the end, we'll do kind of group Q&A and a broader discussion based on questions that may come up or topics that people would like to see explored collaboratively with the group. So again, by way of introduction, Sustainable Minds is really first to market in the sustainable product design and development category, really defining the category 5 years ago. We have been excited to enter this space and to influence a number of the other companies in the space with whom we have partnerships and are developing new ones. And you're going to see that as part of the sneak preview that we're showing you a little bit later. Our mission as a company is to operationalize environmental performance into mainstream product development and manufacturing. And the way that we're doing that is by bringing together two powerful concepts and ways of working. Eco-design, which is bringing life cycle thinking and systems thinking and strategies into the product development process, and life cycle assessment, which is a qualitative and quantitative way of measuring the relative greenness of product systems. And by putting them together, getting people to think differently, generate new ideas, and measure the impact or the performance of those new ideas, we're going to create credibly greener products. And the reason we named the company Sustainable Minds is because to get everybody thinking and working in the same way, it starts with getting them thinking in the same way. So awareness, education, and action. New ideas is when the innovation happens. Metrics and measurement mean you get something that's truly greener. Now we have focused largely on the manufacturing sector of durable goods. You can see a number of our customers or manufacturers. But as I mentioned before, we've seen a real groundswell in education, and today we have educators and students at over 350 colleges and universities around the world using Sustainable Minds. And these are some of our representative customers in education. And this spans the spectrum of business, design, and engineering curriculum with a number of different types of engineering, mechanical, chemical, environmental, and today we're fortunate enough to have with us Raj Kasanath from Montana Tech, who is an associate professor of environmental engineering. I'm going to turn it over to Raj. He'll do his own introduction and talk about who he is, the course that he's teaching, the school, and he'll take us into the class and show us what he taught and what the students learned. So Raj, I'm going to turn it over to you.
And thank you, Terry. My name is Raj Kasanath, and I'm an associate professor here at the Environmental Engineering program at Montana Tech. And this is something that we just started this year, and this semester, I should say, in a class of mine called Environmental Sustainability Management. And the class started off this pilot almost, this is our first time, looking at pretty much anything that they wanted to, because I wanted to have a good understanding of what this meant to students and how worthwhile it is. Basically I'm by background an engineer, and I teach a lot of the core engineering curriculum courses as well as capstone design. My research is more towards biomimicry and biomimetic synthesis and nanotechnology-based biomaterial outcomes. I started teaching this sustainability class about 5 years ago, and I now do the same class as an elective in the University of Montana MBA program. And the reason why we started this off, because we, through discussion through our faculty forums, came to the conclusion that teaching sustainability in classes is it's a win-win based on how manufacturing is changing these days. A little bit about where we come from. We're nestled somewhere at the 6,000 feet above sea level location in the Rockies. The school here was established about in the 1900s, pretty much to address mining-related education at the college level, and it has evolved over the years to include a lot of the arts and the sciences as well. The environmental engineering department is one of the oldest in the world, actually, and by itself as a standalone department, and it is devoted to all aspects of environmental engineering. We emphasize students to engage in hands-on learning, and we believe that this is the way that the demand for the present and future workspace is going to be addressed. Environmental engineering is essentially, a lot of science, chemistry, biology. It's multidisciplinary. It has a lot of core engineering curriculum in it as well. So a lot of courses are addressing things like air and water pollution, how to control it, hazardous waste, remediation of soils, health risk analysis, as well as land reclamation. The learning environment here is highly hands-on, and the outcome of the program is generally to enable students to get an understanding of how pollutants are generated and how to measure them, and then finally to design controls to minimize these and the impacts caused by the pollutants as well. So the two classes that I teach are, as you see on the slide, one for the MBA program and one in our environmental program, engineering program. And what this course has is essentially we introduce the students to LCA. We have not used a highly quantitative way of doing it, as this is the first time we're using Sustainable Minds, but before that it has been offered, but we've never actually used it quantitatively, more qualitatively. And essentially the course starts off to look at the view of the world it is right now from the economic, social, and environmental front, and or so-called the triple bottom line, and to see if we can somehow rationalize where it is, quantify that, and be able to bridge that gap. So the course also introduces sustainability management as a core principle, and this is to enable students to get an understanding of how to go about quantifying environmental performance, of functionalizing these products and enabling them in doing so, and to make those informed management decisions, or to provide the quantification to enable management decisions to take place. So LCA has been tried out for several years now, and we introduce it, like I said in the past, as a semi-quantitative way, and this is the first time that we've actually gone into it by using Sustainable Minds, and this enabled the students to get a quantification, or it put them on a route towards quantifying what those outcomes were, so that you actually had a number to talk about rather than saying high or low, sideways, up or down, which is pretty much way too hand-waving. So the motivation for this comes from the fact that we are looking at to include the degradation of natural resources into the accounting systems out there, and to establish the environmental impact of in terms of costs based on an environmental footprint. And that was our aim, to include this into our syllabi. And the LCA enables, like I said, this quantification to take place. So it was the first time we actually did it. We wanted students to gain this hands-on experience while doing it. What we did was to allocate a portion of the course that the students then devoted in group form to be able to look at a certain product that resonates with their lives, and to carry out an LCA for it, and look at an alternative, and to see how they compared. The basic guidelines are covered in the course, and a checklist is something that they go by in making sure that they're doing the process correctly. So the basic guidelines were for them to define a scope of the project, perform an inventory analysis that I will give a couple of examples about in a bit, define system boundaries, and this is very important based on what it is that you want out of your LCA, And using these inventory analysis system boundaries in combination, we then use the SBOM and the Sustainable Mind software to build up this inventory and then to look at the quantification, the outcomes from these, so that they can be then used to justify these decision-making processes, or choices, behavior change, and so on and so forth. So the two projects that we looked at, and Montana people are highly interested in two things, and coffee drinking is one of them. So apparently, disposable versus reusable cup was one of the projects that the students took up. The other one was to try and address, what kind of environmental consciousness is being entailed in beer consumption. So they were looking at the differences in impact between glass bottles and aluminum cans. So in the first project, the background was that a large percentage of Americans actually drink. And they wanted to determine what was going on and what was the inputs into the inventory that made up a coffee cup. So they had paper cups, lids, and so on and so forth. They would get a product, and they measured all of them, and then followed by then out their inventory analysis. And they did the same thing with reusable coffee mugs. And so apparently you save 10 cents for every refill in most coffee providing retailers, and so you'll pay this difference off roughly about if you actually went on with the disposable coffee cup, which makes a lot of sense from a monetary point of view. The total cost of the cup broke down to about 17 cents. So what they were using is material, and the product attributes were the kind of materials they were using, and kind of manufacturing processes that were involved, the transportation of these products, and what kind of end of life was experienced. They looked at several scenarios, and I'm just going to present one of them. Now, the impacts were from ecological damage, resource depletion, and then human health effects. Okay, I kind of lost the controls there for a second, but coming back, inventory analysis essentially provides a way for the students or whoever's doing this to get an idea of the kind of materials and energy flows that are associated in carrying out or actually that goes into the product itself. So this particular analysis could go all the way from the beginning of the raw materials all the way to the end. And this is something that we'd like the students to start off so that they get an understanding, a base understanding of what's really going on with all the inputs into making the actual product. Right from, if it's going to be packaging, chances are it's going to be cardboard involved, which means that it had to come from somewhere. And then so they trace these steps all the way back and look at the exact flows in and out of the system itself. So that essentially is an inventory analysis. And once they've done this, they then start forming their system boundaries, which then lets them really zoom in into exactly what it is that they're doing in LCA4 within this inventory analysis, and gaining some kind of quantitative output out of that. So these are using those, the flows exactly from the inventory analysis, then the results are put in the SBOM, and then creates these inputs in there. So these are some of the examples here to show the kind of things that might be involved with the paper cups. So things like the materials with polystyrene, paper boards, corrugated boards, and so on, and then transportation based on those. So after all these inputs into the system, into the Sustainable Mind software. And this was the output from it. Once all of those go in, so transportation, end of life, all those inputs made, the students realize that even though there are certain impacts due to in the manufacturing stage of a reusable cup, it all goes away because of the fact that it is reusable over that period of time, whereas that the higher score that you see there for the standard coffee cup is generated by the fact that you're just throwing it away and it's just going to a landfill. So these are broken down and conveyed to the students very quantitatively, and it gives the students a way to exactly say, you know, these are the actual outputs from this analysis, and based on this, we can make an informed decision as to how to proceed, how to go about changing our behavior, or to be able to assist in coming up with an alternative way of analyzing what's going to be done. So these are the broken down percentages between the paper cup and the reusable mug, and they have a good way to visualize these from the numbers as well. And so the findings from this was that the reusable cup initially has this greater impact. The lifespan of the cup, however, offsets these impacts, and while it pays it for itself off in 4 months, it reduces impact over that lifetime over 32 times. So the students got a number to put with it, and that took away that got them thinking about exactly how it fit into the bigger scheme of things. So let me go on into the next one that the students actually did. Somewhere before we go there, some of the findings and conclusions that they came up with was that the cost of convenience can be environmentally devastating, and they quantified that, and that companies that actually provide these services need to lead by example, and environmentally responsible choices should be rewarded. Now, the other analysis was to compare how glass bottles and aluminum cans fared as far as containers for beverages, typically beer. So it is, this has been some amount of controversy that has been surrounding exactly glass bottles and so on as compared to aluminum cans. While aluminum cans are cheaper, way less, they have a higher impact at the raw material stage. Glass, on the other hand, is heavier for the same function, but has fewer raw materials that go into the process. However, there's a high burden at the end of life. But exactly what is that number? So the students wanted to know how to go about quantifying this, and that's why they use the ESM software. And in doing so, they came across some amount. So these are their, as I said from the previous example, what the system boundaries were. In this case, they used bottles and cans that were already modeled, so they weren't spending any extra time and effort trying to actually model the shape and the size and those kinds of things. Transportation was pretty much from one point to another, in this case from Colorado to Butte, Montana, and the end of life, and we looked at choices that were only available in the town of Butte for recycling. So they weighed out all these things. They knew exactly what went in there. So that's the material that went into making glass bottles, followed by again, they did the inventory analysis and knew exactly what was creating flows in the process that generated this product. And once they decided on where to zoom in on their system boundaries, which were given on the previous slide, they went on and did the same for aluminum as well. Okay, so the next slide came up, and six-pack aluminum cans have another breakdown for their weight and for the individual parts that go into it, and the students use that from their inventory analysis here for a six-pack of aluminum. cans, and that encompasses the entire range of the inputs. So right from, what are the materials that go into making the ring materials for the polymer rings that hold the actual cans together, all the way to the fabrication of the cans, distribution, recycling, and so on. So this essentially is what the students use, as I said before, to gain a better understanding of what the ins and outs in the system are. So this was the output for this, and an aluminum can apparently has a better environmental, as a lesser impact, as a performance improvement from the impact point of view of 96% as compared to the glass bottle. And this is mainly caused by the fact that the glass bottle, especially from where we are, ended up in a landfill. So that's 250 millipoints there for the glass bottle, with the breakdown for the impact categories as the Sustainable Minds software generates, compared to the aluminum, which was just 8.9, and with those impact categories broken down as well. So the results, as assessed by the software, quantitatively showed that glass bottles impact the environment 28 times greater than as compared to aluminum cans. So the suggestion that they had was that manufacturers and consumers should seek out aluminum cans as a way to reduce environmental impact while consuming beverages. So that was the take-home from there. The key learning from the students' perspective was the fact that we could actually assimilate, product development and management by using this highly versatile tool. The outcomes were generated that enable triple bottom line decisions, or could be used to make those decisions, so that they come up with a sound environmental component that is both economically feasible and socially equitable at the same time. From the educator's point of view, I think that the SM software is very straightforward. It's highly intuitive. The students got onto it right away. They almost became thrilled with the fact that they could generate these numbers as opposed to just talking about them in these gray shades in the past. So at the same time, it generates a lot of high throughput outcomes, so they could actually vary their inputs and able to see things, outcomes in real time. And that highly stimulated the way that they worked. And again, this enabled them to make an informed analysis and recommendation based on those numbers. The trends that I see that are coming out from using software like Sustainable Minds is to be essentially used to increase curriculum efforts, that we need this interaction between professional schools of engineering, business, public health, law, and so on. And one of the things that I believe will happen is Sustainable Minds would be like a common ground to simulate components from these various different programs and to have a forum to discuss those. And so definitely the role of software like Sustainable Minds should be definitely explored and further defined and refined as well. In terms of the industry takeaways, I personally believe in that the incorporation of software like this into the program generally makes the graduates it places them at a competitive level for the job market of tomorrow. And innovation right now is realized and speeded up by people who can hit the ground running, and about hiring people who already have these tools to address this ability to quantify what's going on in terms of environmental performance and be able to provide the tools, or be able to provide these data sets to enable decision makers to make informed decisions. And that's what I have for my slides. Again, it was an extremely valuable way for us to express what was going on, and the students got a great deal out of it, is what I gathered by looking at the surveys that just came out yesterday in terms of the student evaluation.
Well, Raj, thank you. That's a great story, and you know, again, love the fact that you just got started, and you know, nobody is expert at this yet. Everybody is learning at the same pace, and I'm sure you learned as much or potentially even more than the students. As an educator, what do you think your biggest takeaway was from this first experience of using it, or did you have any like real aha moment yourself?
Well, the greatest takeaway from this for me is, and this resonates with the feedback that I get from the students as well, is the fact that it is highly interesting to just talk about numbers rather than just saying, you know, perhaps we're here or there. I think that really generated a lot of definite value addedness to the students as well. So that was my aha moment when I actually saw the students get excited about the fact that they could actually go about making the changes and seeing the real-time outcome statements. So it you know, and it seriously created. Well, we started off simple. I told them, you know, let's not get too carried away by this. Let's try and keep it as simple as possible. They took it to whatever levels that they wanted, so I let them have a go at it. But the outcome was just priceless as far as I'm concerned. So it's something that I would definitely continue on with in these classes that I'm going to teach LCA in.
All right. Well, Raj, thank you so much. That was a really kind and generous review of our software and students using us. All right, great. Thank you. So I'm going to move forward now to introduce you to Aaron Marshall, and just a quick intro about Aaron. Aaron was probably one of our very first customers a couple of years ago when we were still in beta. And Aaron came to Boston and did a workshop with us. Aaron will tell you about Magnet, which is a very interesting organization. I'm originally from Cleveland, and Magnet is based in Cleveland, so I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for what they're working on there. Magnet has since become a partner of Sustainable Minds and has been advocating for sustainability in manufacturing in Northeast Ohio. What I love about this story is that the head of the department at Kent State wanted to use Sustainable Minds in their curriculum and didn't have someone lined up to teach it. And as a result, we recommended Magnet, and Aaron stepped up to teach the course about a month before it had to start. And so Aaron's going to tell you about literally not only just getting started teaching with Sustainable Minds. Aaron's never taught in a university setting before. So he got started teaching in the university and teaching Sustainable Minds. And this is a great story about how teaching in professional practice translates so well into a hands-on academic environment. So, Aaron, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Terry. I appreciate the introduction. So just a little background on myself. I graduated from the University of Dayton in 1997, and I've spent the last 14 years in consumer products and light industrial products, which is a really good fit for the Sustainable Mind software. I've been able had the advantage to use it on a couple projects that I've worked on. So I've been able to really familiarize myself with the software in day-to-day life for me. Currently, I manage a department that designs and commercializes consumer and light industrial products at Magnet. And like Terry said, this was my first experience teaching at the collegiate level. I do volunteer work teaching entrepreneurship at the high school level, but definitely a different environment. And I think I probably learned as much as the students learned working through the process, so it was pretty exciting. To tell you a little bit about what we do at Magnet, we are a nonprofit organization based in Cleveland, Ohio, and we service northern Ohio. The bulk of our clients are in northeast Ohio in the Cleveland area. As you can see on the slide here, our focus is to spur economic growth in northeast Ohio. So we do a lot of nonprofit work in education, workforce development. We do a lot of seminars. We do a lot of training courses. We try to be the hub where manufacturers can come and educate themselves about whatever business need they need. Our bulk of our clients, are under $50 million in revenue, but we do service some very large, well-named companies, and then we also work with the military. And then we have our fee-for-service side. Part of the way our funding is set up with the state and federal government is we have to generate revenue dollar for dollar. So every dollar we receive, we have to generate $1 of revenue, and that's where my department and the other fee-for-service department come in. So we offer product development service, rapid prototyping services. We can take you from you walk in our door and you say, I'm in a commodity business. I need a new product. We've developed a fantastic ideation process that can basically generate ideas from you for you, and then we can take those ideas and we can commercialize them for you. We also have Lean, Six Sigma, quality, and some office Lean services that we offer. We've also developed a brand new program called our PRISM program, where we're working to get area manufacturers to collaborate on new product development. So if a company comes in and says, I've got this idea, I want to do this, but I don't have the resources to do it, who can I partner with to help me make this a reality? We currently have 5 companies who have ideas, who have started down the path in this program, and we're very excited about this program. I think it's going to be a fantastic program. So basically for us to marry up these folks and assist them, whether it be in product development or just general project management, and to make the right relationships is something that is very exciting. So that's a little bit about Magnet. The course I taught at Kent State University, as Terry said, I was thrust into it very late in the game. It's not a new course there, but it's the first time the course has used the Sustainable Mind software. So there was no syllabus, there was no guidelines or anything for me to follow. Basically, I just had to look at the Life Cycle Design 1 class that the students were taught, and then figure out how to take a software that I could probably teach them how to use in a day, because it's so easy to use, and stretch it out over a 16-week class and really educate them on the background of the software and the hidden parts of the software that they don't see, so that they can really greatly appreciate the value of the software and the time the software would save them in the real world, for them to basically try to get all the data that's in that software and create an LCA for a product we did in class that took a half hour. Would probably take them 6 months to a year. So that was really, I think, a big focus, and then just to get them so familiarized with the product that they could go out and they could train someone how to use the product. So I approached it from, I would say, more of a, since I'm in the product development realm, I really really focused on how I use the software and to educate the students on how it's used in the real world and what are the applications, and not just being able to take the output and being able to present that output to the decision makers in your organization, because you get the output and it's fantastic. These are great numbers and it's a fantastic sustainable solution, but you have to have justification for it. Companies just aren't going to do things just because they're the sustainable approach. Everybody still has to make money, so you've got to have a financial justification behind your sustainability approach. And in order for you, one, to stay in business, you can't lose money. So it's a balance, and that's one thing that we really focused on was, okay, what's the balance between being sustainable and also still being profitable, so that you can continue to employ your employees and provide a quality of life for them, which is a very difficult balance we find in the working world. So I kind of jumped ahead there, but so the key takeaways that I wanted the students to have, which are necessary to best utilize the sustainability, Sustainable Mind software. Obviously, they have to understand the bill of materials. And I had 5 students. I had an architect, an engineer, a pilot, a gentleman who runs a shipping company, and a gentleman who was in the IT world. So I had a pretty diverse background. A few of them knew what a bill of material was, but most of them didn't. So we spent some time, explaining to them how to break down a product so that they can best input into the Sustainable Minds. Wanted them to understand the impacts and the categories, and I wanted them to apply and really approach the project we work on from a personal level, so that they're passionate about it, so that I get the best value out of them. Develop a high-level understanding of the eco-design strategy wheel, which Terry talked about earlier. Thinking differently is key in product development, and then also when you implement that sustainable element into product development, you've added another level of, I've got to think different. Right? So we focused a lot on how do we think different, and the eco-strategy wheel is a great way to, that's a systematic approach that kind of forces you to think differently. And it was a good tool, and the students gave me really positive feedback on the eco-design strategy wheel. They really liked it. And a lot of these, understanding the inputs and how to put the products in, understanding the front end of the software is extremely important. You can use the software in any situation, and the value you get out of the back end is only as good as the information that you put in the front end, and making sure that they're framing it up. And where are they living is what I would always tell them. Where are we living? Are we between your factory walls, or are we going all the way back to when they pull it out of the ground? So we really focused a lot on how we're framing up the projects that they were working on, and making sure that one of the things I really stressed to them also was making sure that you clearly communicate your assumptions, because you have to make a lot of assumptions when you're doing these LCAs. So if one of your assumptions is that I'm only focused on between my factory walls, make sure you clearly state that, and I'm excluding part X from this. Make sure that you clearly portray your assumptions and your exclusions so that you get the best value out of the output. And then just a few other things that I love to develop young minds and work with students at all levels, and being able to teach them leadership skills and being able to teach them communication skills and how to do presentations was kind of a wonderful, I'll say, side effect of this software, because again, you've got to present your outputs clearly and concisely in order to convince the decision makers that yes, this is the right way to go, both from a sustainability standpoint and from an economical business standpoint. Okay. So we did several projects in the class, and I'm just going to share one project. We started out with very remedial projects where they just broke down a couple pieces, products with a couple pieces in it, just so that they could get an understanding of how the software worked. Then we walked through, what do the outputs mean, and I think it's very important. What I found is very important is to do one or two simple projects and then break them down. And I think it's also important is not to be too leading with the students and let them really make their own assumptions and handle the front end of the software themselves, because what I found was that you get completely different outputs when you give them a little bit of creative freedom there and let them set their own boundaries. And then what that does is that leads to great discussion in the class, and then you can point out your outputs are completely different, but they still lead to the same end goal. So that I thought is very important, and it really helps them then understand how to use the software and how to best get the value out of the software for what their end goals were. I also encourage them, and you'll see is this alarm clock redesign was part of the classes. They're starting their own company, and they have to come up with their own sustainability mission statement, or they have to come up with their own sustainability goals. So therefore, when they're breaking down these products and they're making decisions on, should I go with material A or should I go with material B, are you achieving your sustainability goals, so that then they can best present their outcomes to me, and they're driving towards a direction, because that you're going to be doing the same thing in the real world. If you're working for company X, and company X has a sustainability mission statement or sustainability goals, your decisions for your sustainable direction in your product development are going to be driven by that mission statement and those goals. So I thought it was very important to bring that real world discipline into the projects that they worked on. So this project, what I had them do was break down the alarm clock, and had them perform the life cycle assessment, create a flow diagram of the area of focus. So where are you living? And explain to me and be very clear and concise. And are you focused on just between your factory walls, or are you focused on when the product comes out of the ground? Also then, they had to then break down the alarm clock and give me their BOM, right? And then, as you can see here, really then dive into the software and come up with a new innovative product. And then they had to deliver that in a 15-minute presentation. And I'm going to show you one of those presentations by Brian, who did a fantastic job. So his company he created was called Product Green, and here's his presentation that he narrated for us. It's just a quick 2-minute presentation, and it's really cool. So
this produces more non-hazardous material waste in the end, and less hazardous material waste. That comes primarily from reduced lead content. Looking back overall, all the other inputs pretty much stay the same, and we have the product green alarm clock. This alarm clock is green, if I had Photoshop skills. So this specific product is made from 90% recycled materials. looking at the bill of materials for the original pre-re-engineered product, it had a 345 millipoint environmental impact. Once Product Green got their hands on it, we go to the bill of materials for the re-engineered product, we're now looking at a 59.8 millipoint environmental impact. For this product, that's a whopping 82% improvement in environmental impact. The old product had about a 60% lion's share of ecotoxicity for the total impact on the environment. That didn't change too much with the redesign, and it's down to about 54%. Ecotoxicity in most manufacturing is going to be about where most of your impact is going to come from. Thank you for your time. Look for more Product Green ideas coming soon.
Yeah, so Brian did a fantastic job with his presentation. And we'll get the PowerPoint reloaded here. And so, the nice condensed version you did there was fantastic for this. Just to show you a little clip of what we did in the class, but he had a fantastic, more detailed 15-minute presentation in class, and it was awesome. It was phenomenal. The students really got into it because they owned it, which is extremely important. It's what I find. They've got to own it. They've got to be passionate about it, or you're not going to get 100% out of it. So I really gave them a lot of creative freedom on the things that we did. So if we move along here, let's see. There we go. So I think thought I had one more slide in here. Oh, okay. So the key learnings for me that I wanted to get across to the students was the ability to utilize the software and be able to take the software and go out into the real world and go ahead and to apply it, especially since this was a graduate class. A couple of my students had real jobs. They were professionals in the real world, in the private sector. So this is something that they could go out and convince their bosses or their higher-ups, hey, this is a software that we can utilize, and I can show you how to use it. And part of the final that I gave them, they had to write a training manual for sustainable mines, which was really cool to see how each of them did it a little bit differently. But you could pick up any one of their little 5 or 6 page booklet that they put together and walk through the sustainable mine software and be able to turn on your computer, log in, and start using the software. And that was good to see. I was very pleased that we were able to get that across to them. Understanding a BOM, obviously you've got to know how to do that to use the software. And the thought process that goes into it. Changing the way you think when you're doing sustainable design, or just in general in your day-to-day life. Change the way you think on how you approach things to a more sustainable approach was extremely important to me. And they got that. They loved the eco-strategy wheel, and they felt that they could utilize that in other aspects of their life, which was great. And then also just the value of the sustainable mine software. And part of the final 2 was for them to I told them, your company just purchased the sustainable mine software. You have to convince the engineering department that this is a value-add software, and they need to use it in every project that they do. So it was really cool to see the students gravitate towards it and give me their opinions and show me what their takeaway was from the class. In the industry trends, what I see, being a manager in a product development department, we're lean, just like most organizations now, and we don't have a lot of time to spend training folks. We're in a fairly unique situation here at Magnet, and that we utilize a lot of student engineers from Cleveland State University, and we utilize our industrial designers from the Cleveland Institute of Art. And we've got a little bit more flexibility with them. We can take some time to train them. But we like to get them as freshmen and sophomores so that when we train them, we're getting a good solid 3 years out of them and their value add. And I've been at Magnet a little over 6 years now. I think I've had, I would say, close to a dozen interns, both from Cleveland State and from the Cleveland Institute of Art. And right now we have a 100% placement rate with those students because they're getting real-world experience. So employers can hire them and know that they're already trained in Pro-E. They already know how to use the software. They're trained in the industrial design software. They know how to use the tablets. They know how to use all that software. The industrial design students can create renderings, and they understand what is needed to be successful. So, because there's just not a lot of time for on-the-job training anymore, and at the end of the day, new hires they have to add value. Right? There's a little bit of learning curve, but you've got to add value. So I really wanted to instill that in the students, and for them to be able to walk out of this class and be able to take the knowledge of this software and be able to walk into any work environment, and boom, they can hit the ground running. So
Well,
that
Aaron,
was it. Was
I'm going to
Go
jump
ahead.
in because this is a great presentation, and I love the fact that your students made presentations like you would make on the job, or other folks on the webcast would create for any client presentation. And the ability to train kids on the job while they're working is a really nice message, particularly within this webcast. So we're bumping up towards the top of the hour. I want to do the sneak preview, and we'll take some questions at the end. So please put your questions in. I'm just going to go briefly through our sneak preview because I want everybody to know what we have and what's coming. The first is our curriculum library. As faculty and educators use Sustainable Minds, we're working with them for them to contribute their curriculum, whether it's a project that they gave or whether it's an entire course that they delivered. These are just some of the examples that we have. That we are growing this data set, and particularly over the summer. It's a focus of ours. We will have projects and curriculum across business design and engineering, including the courses that you heard about today. The next piece that we're working on, which we're super excited about, because this is the piece that will let educators and students and people in organizations learn from each other during the design process, and to create communities around topics or product categories or issues that they want to not only share content with, but to crowdsource answers and responses to issues that they're working on at the time. So we're working with Booch, one of our partners, on integrating some of their capabilities around community and collaboration. The idea of using social software in product development is a concept that we both share, which makes the partnership good. This is an example of a page that, for example, an educator could create where the educator sets up the page, invites all the students to the page, and this is an example of either the end of a project or the interim state of a project, where each student is posting images or the state of their work to the class page, and now the educator and other students can be commenting on the work, asking questions. Anybody can be invited to this page. It can go beyond just the class. It can be other people in the department. It can be other people in other departments. And in fact, this page can actually even be made public. You can click into any of these and see the work on each student's page. And this work can be changing as they're creating it. And again, people can comment, ask questions. It's a great way of doing online feedback, critiques, and again, just knowledge sharing and making that public. And it becomes a record of the class and the work that the students are doing. There's also a community component where you will be able to define the communities that you want to create within your school or within your class, or even within the topic. And as students are working, they can post these questions into the community to get them answered by experts or peers. And once the questions are answered and they show up on the student's page, they can disconnect from the community so that there aren't old, stale conversations going on. What's in the community is always what's top of mind and active. So we're launching a pilot phase, and we are looking for 5 organizations, whether they are schools or businesses, who would like to participate in our pilot program around community and collaboration. And when you exit the webcast, there will be a survey, and that's one of the questions we ask. If you're interested in the pilot, you'll let us know. But this is really key to our vision, which is to scale the knowledge and collaboration between knowledge workers. So just to wrap up, I hope today that you learned it's okay to just get started. Take what you know, add some new stuff, and get going. And it's okay to make it up as you go. As an educator, you're going to learn as much from the students as they do from you, which is always the case. So we'll be doing more in this webcast series. We'll do 2 more this summer so that you folks who are in education can get a sense of how you'd want to use it in the next semester or beyond. And for those of you who are using Sustainable Minds already, we'd love to hear from you about the success stories you're having, and maybe get you on one of our webcasts, or at least do a blog post. So just to wrap up, feel free to contact us. We're happy to tell you about our corporate and academic programs, classes, departments, or even unlimited subscription packages at the university or at the corporate level. We're bundling all of our subscription programs with curriculum, training, and support. Contact us about, again, our community collaboration pilot, introductions to Vooch, and to learn more about our Getting Started programs for greener product innovation that we are implementing in manufacturing companies. So once again, thanks for coming. Thank you, Raj and Aaron, for sharing your stories. Check our blog next week. We'll have this webcast replay posted, as well as a blog post summarizing the key learnings and salient points of what was shared. And certainly feel free to share this information with your friends and colleagues. So with that, thanks again for attending, and have a great rest of the afternoon and a great holiday weekend. Take care.